Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Buckeye Politics. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Pennsylvania primary elections that took place last night. For obviously the most major races for president, but there were a couple other races down ballot and statewide that we'll take a look at near the end. But I think the most important race, and the reason I think most people even cared, is for the presidential race. Obviously, the candidates have already been decided. Biden will be the Democrats' nominee, and Trump will be the Republicans' nominee. But there's still a lot of questions about how this could possibly impact the general. Now, take all this with a grain of salt. Primary elections are not a very good way to indicate how a general election is going to go usually. I mean, turnout's usually all kind of out all different. I mean, it's very different electorates in terms of, because especially in Pennsylvania, since this Pennsylvania is a closed primary, so only Democrats could vote in the Democrat primary, only Republicans could vote in the Republican primary. So it leads to some. So it's not the best. I guess, indicator for how the election will go in November, but there is just some interesting stuff that I personally took away and that could lead to something that's very important and impacts the race in November. So let's start with the Republicans. Trump got 83.4%. He got about 790,000 votes, almost 800,000. That's a solid performance, especially because it really hasn't been able to campaign due to the trial, and the Trump campaign seems more focused on raising money right now than holding rallies, which makes sense considering the trials going on and also they're trailing Democrats in fundraising. Nikki Haley, though, got 16.6%. That is a little bit higher than I probably would have expected, especially since she did drop out like well over a month ago at this point. But Pennsylvania does have very, I guess you'd say, interesting voter laws. The early voting has been going on for a long time, since I think like the day she dropped out, but like early voting began in Pennsylvania. So there are a lot of people who might have voted for her before she dropped out. I'm sure it's not a huge number, but there were certainly some of those voters, and there were plenty of people who probably liked her that would still vote for her even though she dropped out as maybe a protest vote. But really, Trump was the main nominee. So Trump did very well statewide. He got in the 80s and 90s in pretty much every single county, except for a couple, and they were all near Philadelphia. So we'll start at the Philly suburbs of Montgomery County, Chester County, and Delaware County. Chester County, I think, is especially important. This is a former Republican county. I believe Mitt Romney won it in 2012, but it's since moved very far to the left. It's one of the most upper class, white, college educated counties in Pennsylvania. This is a county that has moved, very far to the left recently. They're not a big fan of Trumpism. But in that county, Trump got 75% of the vote. Nikki Haley got 25%. So Trump won by about a 3-1 margin, which is pretty good, actually, I will say. I mean, earlier in the night, before all the votes ever really came in, he was only in like the 60s, maybe in like 50s, and by some like estimates early on. So the fact he got up to 75% is certainly a good thing. It shows he's starting to unite the base around him. But it does say that there are a lot of Republicans, especially moderate suburbanites, who really are not big fans of Trump. Are they going to vote for Biden? I mean, probably not. But still, I mean, 1/4 of Republicans is still a major voting bloc that Trump is going to have to win over. And I mean, the fact that he did 75% in Montgomery, Trump got 77% in Delaware County. Like I said, these are upper class, like more, I guess you'd say, like affluent, college educated white areas. Trump is going to have to win over these Nikki Haley voters or make up for that in other parts of the state. And I think that actually making up for in other parts of the state is probably going to be his best option, in all honesty, looking at primary data alone. Obviously, I'm not saying he can't win back these voters, but we know that Trump and I guess you'd say, MAGA candidates have struggled in the suburbs recently and with those types of voters. So let's look at where Trump could maybe pick up some steam. Let's start in the Pittsburgh suburbs. So in Pittsburgh is a more working class, still very white, but it's a more working class. It's home to steel mills, manufacturing jobs, stuff like that. It's an area Trump has always done very well in, but he's, especially last night, based on the numbers we've seen. Let's start with Westmoreland County. It's a suburb to the east of Pittsburgh. It's a pretty highly populated county. Trump got 87% there. If we compare that to Joe Biden, Biden only got 85%. This is important because Nikki Haley, I would argue, and I think most people would agree with me, was a much stronger challenger to Trump than Dean Phillips was to Joe Biden. And same with writing candidates as well, in all honesty. I mean, Nikki Haley was very well funded. She had major endorsements. She obviously was on the debate stage. She had a lot of media coverage. Dean Phillips didn't really get any of that. Neither did the whole write-in. Like, I'm assuming ceasefire now. I don't exactly know who the write-ins were for. I'm assuming it's something with Palestine like we saw in Michigan and New Hampshire. But, yeah, so I would say that Nikki Haley, I mean, she got a bunch of money. She had the debates. She had so much backing. She was a much stronger challenger to Trump than Dean Phillips or the pro Palestine vote was to Joe Biden. But yet Trump did better than them in these counties. This suggests that people in these counties, especially like as we'll see, tend to I would argue are probably they're working. These are working class voters who are not big fans of Joe Biden. I mean, Biden, like I said, I mean he faced less opposition but did worse than Trump in a close primary. There's a lot of Democrats who are upset with Biden. Are they going to vote for Trump? I mean, maybe, especially if they're working class like union voters, that's possible. But they might just stay home as well, which would also be a bonus for Trump. So let's look at a few other counties. Butler County, which is more suburban county north of Pittsburgh. Biden got 87%. Trump got 84%. So in that county, Biden did do slightly better than Trump, but it wasn't by a whole lot. Beaver County. This is a very suburban county outside of Pittsburgh. It's I believe Josh Shapiro won it in 2022, a Democrat running for governor. It's more of, I guess you would say, it's not as Republican as the rest of these counties usually, although it did vote for Trump. Trump got 87%. Biden got 82%. So Trump did better margin-wise in Beaver County than he did in than Biden did. West Washington County, which is another suburb of Pittsburgh, obviously, as you can see, Biden got 86%. Trump got 87%, so Trump did better than Biden in Washington County, another suburb of Pittsburgh with a pretty sizable population. Let's look at now northeastern Pennsylvania. This is like the Scranton area. This is another area Trump has always done very well in, but Biden made some gains in 2020 because it's technically his home area, and he ran a campaign really focused on this part of the state. Lackawanna County, home to Scranton. Trump got 87%. Biden got 88%. Obviously, Biden got a higher percentage, but it was basically the same. I mean, a 1 percentage point difference when you compare their opposition is really not that good for Biden. Luzerne County, Trump got 89%, and Biden got 86%, so Trump did better than Biden in Luzerne County. Wyoming County I wouldn't really consider much of a suburb. I mean, working class area. It's not very highly populated, I should say. But Trump got 84%, Biden got 87%. Monroe County, this is kind of more of a swing county as well. Trump got 87%, Biden got 94%. So again, there is sort of Monroe County is more of a swing county than I would say Luzerne or Lackawanna, but Biden still underperformed Trump in these counties. Although, like I said, obviously in some of the more, I guess you would say, upper class, like more suburban swing counties, Biden did better. So, like I said, it really just depends on the area of the state you're looking at. And if you look at a lot of these counties as well, you'll probably notice that the Democrats had a much higher, I guess you'd say, turnout. But the Democrats had over 1 million people vote on their side. Republicans had about 950,000. But that's actually not too big of a deal when you consider that Pennsylvania has a lot more registered Democrats than registered Republicans, and the Republican base in Pennsylvania usually comes from unaffiliated voters. So again, basically just to reiterate, while Trump did struggle in the Philadelphia suburbs, and that could be a warning sign for November, it's clear that the Democrats in Pittsburgh and Scranton and rural Pennsylvania, these more union blue-collar types, are not fans of Biden, and Trump did better, and Biden is struggling with them. Can Biden win back those voters, and can Trump win back the voters in the suburbs? I mean, yeah, it's possible, but it's really just too early to tell. Primary data is not the best way to look at to prepare for an election. It's a completely different electorate, but it does kind of show where the, I guess, momentum and swings could kind of lie at. So let's look at some other races. Attorney General Eugene DePascal won the primary for the Democrats. He's from like the Pittsburgh area. He dominated in western Pennsylvania. Eastern Pennsylvania was like a split between a bunch of different candidates. It is kind of funny. Delaware County, suburb of Philadelphia, Jack Stolzheimer got 73% there. He only got 20% nationwide. Yeah, I mean statewide. So pretty sure that's his home county. Kind of just a funny result. I mean these in Pennsylvania always just has weird primary results. The Republican primary for Attorney General, Dave Sunday won pretty handily. He was basically the entire Pennsylvania Republican Party united behind him. Really no surprise there. I'm not sure if I would consider him the favorite for November. I think Eugene DePascal is probably going to win, but it's going to be a close race either way. Looking at the U.S. House races, the only two races we're going to look at, only one on the Democrat side, one on the Republican side. One of them is the 12th district. This is like the Pittsburgh area. Summer Lee is a progressive Democrat who faced a primary challenge because of her opposition to the war going place in Gaza and Israel. No one really thought she would lose, but it was just interesting to see how well she would do because some candidates like Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, that are facing, I guess you would say, higher profile primaries from pro-Israel and pro-Israel groups. It was interesting to see just how well she would do. She got 61% of the vote. Her opponent got 39%. That's basically what we expected, probably a little bit closer than it should have been. That could be a sign for people like Ilhan Omar, who are facing very tough primary challenges because of their opposition to the war in Gaza and Israel. I'm not really sure. She was going to win the general either way. It's just interesting to see how, I guess, the politics of the war in Israel affect politics here. The other race we're going to look at, though, is Pennsylvania's 1st district. This is a district that voted for Joe Biden by like 7 percentage points, but is represented by a Republican, Brian Fitzpatrick. He's a moderate Republican. He's won re-election in this district by sizable margins because he is pretty moderate, although it is a blue district like on the presidential level and statewide elections. He's won the district as a Republican. He only got 61% of the vote, though. That shows that Republicans and conservatives well, obviously they're probably not the biggest fans of him, but he's been around for a little bit while. He usually does better than this, so it is interesting to see he struggled there. That could be a bad sign for him in November if conservatives in the district just refuse to vote for him or leave the vote blank. I doubt they'd vote for the Democrat, but they could just leave the vote blank. So that is something to be for Republicans to be concerned about. I still think Brian Fitzpatrick wins because this is just a very different electorate, being only registered Republicans, but still it shows that he is struggling with the base. He has to make up some ground with them by November. In the Senate race, there was really no contest at all. David McCormick won the Republican primary, but Bob Casey won the Democratic primary. The Auditor General, Malcolm Kenyatta, who ran for Senate, I believe in 2022 against John Fetterman, he won the race pretty handily. That he pretty much had the Democrats around him. He'll face incumbent Republican DeFleur. I think DeFleur is probably narrowly favored in that race. The treasurer race was very close. Bizarro, he lost the primary to McClelland. I don't really know a whole lot about this race, to be honest. I do know that Bizarro was basically supported by every Democrat, and he was seen as the favorite to win the race, but he obviously lost narrowly, so I'm not sure how that affects the race in November. Stacey Garrity, the incumbent Republican, is a strong incumbent. I think that maybe tips the scale onto her end because of that upset primary, but really too early to tell. I don't really want to make a prediction based off of primary data. That's just my go-to off-the-cusp kind of take on it. So yeah, looking at the results here, just kind of reiterate, Trump did struggle in the Philadelphia suburbs, especially with white, college-educated, affluent voters. But he did do very well in basically the entire rest of the state. Biden, he did fairly well statewide, but he did struggle in places like the Pittsburgh suburbs, in northeastern Pennsylvania, like the Scranton area. These are areas that he has to do well in order to beat Trump. So there is clearly room to grow. There's positives and negatives for both Trump and Biden that we took away from this. I don't really think it's enough to say that the election's going to go either way. It's just kind of interesting to look at, and we'll see what happens in the future. So thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe for more.